All right, good morning students. We are going to start with a new chapter and this is specifically for the boards in 11th standard and for IIT as well. Okay, so this is one of the most important chapters that you have, and that is basically kinematics. Okay, so please go through this chapter very descriptively. We won't have much of theory to discuss here, but a lot of problems and variations in the problems that can be actually made in this chapter. Okay, so I would really prefer you to pay attention to this one. You will have loads of information in various sites about this chapter, but and you will have a lot of information in your books as well, but it is very extremely important from the point of view of your competitions of IIT or NEET as well. Okay, so my primary purpose is to touch base with all the boards that you have and NEET and IIT as well. Basically everything that correlates to this chapter correlates to your problems that can be asked in competition as well. So please pay attention, grab a pen and a notebook, make as much notations as you can, and we will proceed ahead with this chapter. Okay, so before I start with this chapter, there are certain things that you should be knowing. This is basically a chapter in physics, so the things that you are expected to have a thorough knowledge would be on vectors. Okay, so vectors is something that you should be having a thorough knowledge on before we start with this chapter. So we will go on with this chapter. If you have any questions, please feel free to post your comments in the comment section. Now, what is kinematics basically? Okay, you will come across two chapters which seem to be very much correlated to each other in physics. One is kinematics and the other one is Newton's laws of motion. Okay, so what is basically kinematics? That is something that we are going to study. Now, kinematics is when it is correlated to the the relationship between the different parameters of motion, between the different parameters of motion, and not the cause of motion. Okay, and not the cause of motion. Okay, so this is something that we need to understand. Okay, between the different parameters of motion and not the cause of motion, it means that kinematics is something which is correlated to the different aspects of motion. Now, when we say motion of a body, what are the different parameters of motion that we will have? We will have something called as position of the body. We will have something called as speed of the body. We will have something called as distance covered by the body. We will have something called as displacement by the body. Not very unfamiliar terms to you. Okay, you have studied these terms in your previous classes in 9th and 10th standard as well. Okay, so position, distance, displacement, speed. Then we have something called as velocity. Then we have something called as instantaneous speed. Okay, we will have something called as instantaneous speed. Then we will have something called as instantaneous velocity. Okay, then we will have something called as average speed, and we will have something called as average velocity. Okay, then we will have something called as acceleration. So all these are various aspects of motion. They are not the cause of motion. Okay, cause of motion may be an external force which we are not going to study in this chapter. Okay, we might have certain things associated with force, but descriptively we will study that in a different chapter when we specifically study Newtonian mechanics. But here we are going to study about the position, distance, displacement, velocity, speed, instantaneous velocity, average speed, average velocity, and acceleration. So these are things that we generally study in kinematics. A very important chapter. The reason why it's important is a lot of questions can be framed on this chapter itself. Okay, just 1 moment. Okay, so we have all these things that we are going to study in kinematics. Okay, now when we study about kinematics, obviously it refers to things in motion. Now, how do we say that a thing is in motion? How would we say that a body is in motion? Okay, so we need to understand this. See, generally our perception is that if the position of a body changes with time, there is some motion that is happening. Okay, so generally our perception is that if the position of a body changes, with time, then motion is happening. That's what we consider motion to be. If the position of a body is changing with time, then motion is happening. That's something that we will study. Okay, now is it always the case? No. Here we are correlating motion with change of position with respect to time. Okay, now let's understand. So for example, this example has been given in the book of H.C. Verma. So let's say we have a book which is kept on a table. Let's say I record the time here at as let's say 1 o'clock. Okay, 1 o'clock. The book is here. At 2 o'clock, the book is still there. At 10 o'clock, the book is still there. Whatever, AM, PM, whatever. Okay. So will I say that the body is at rest? I would, right? Why? Because the position of this book is not changing with respect to time. Okay. So the position of this book is not changing with respect to time. However, if let's say, where is this book kept? This book is kept at a place on earth. All right. So let's say this is the table. Where is the, obviously the relative sizes are something that I cannot explain, but let's say it is kept somewhere in earth. If I were to look at this book from the moon, now tell me, if I compare these parameters of time, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock, is this going to remain the same? No, the earth is revolving, and it is revolving at quite a speed, approximately 1100 miles per hour. Okay, so it is revolving at quite a speed. Now if I look at it, is it stationary? No. Okay, so because this earth is revolving, so is the book. According to me, when I'm in front of the desk, since the desk is not moving and neither am I, or maybe I am moving, but this desk compared to the desk, it is not moving. But when I look at it, when I become a different observer, when I place myself in the moon and look at this book, is it moving? Yes, it is moving. Let's take another example. Then again, this example is given in the book of H.C. Verma. So let's say we have a train here. This train is basically moving on a railway track, and we have passengers out here who are standing. Okay, so we have passengers out here who are standing. All of a sudden, a robber enters the train. A robber enters the train. He places a gun and he tells all the passengers to stay still, not to move. Okay. He is planning to rob all of them, take away all their belongings, whatever. Okay. He tells them not to move. Now this robber telling them not to move, they become still. Okay. Are they still? Okay. With respect to the robber, they are not moving. They are still. Okay. But with respect to the railway track, are they moving? Yes, they are moving. Okay. So it depends where is the observer. Okay. Where is the observer? So the motion of a body is not something that we generally compare with time only. Okay. Yes, if the position of a body is changing with time, then we will say that the body is moving, but it's just not with time. There is an observer who is related to the motion of a body. Okay. So motion of a body is quite correlated to the observer, where the observer is. Okay. Where is the observer? So motion and the observer, motion of a body and the observer are correlated. Okay, so motion of a body and the observer are correlated, and that's very important out here. Okay, so in order to determine whether a body is at rest or is at motion, see, these are things which we will study in later course of time. In these are things which we will solve numericals on, but the basic concept should be very clear. What is a body which is in motion? What is a body which is in rest? How will we define whether a body is at rest or at motion? These are things that we need to consider. Okay, so basically it all depends upon the motion and the observer. Okay, so where is the observer? How is he observing? From what plane is he observing the body? It depends. So if I were on earth itself, then I would say that the body is red. But if I place myself on the moon, then the body is moving. Similarly, anybody who is standing outside the train, for them the passengers are not still, they are moving. But for the robber, the passengers are still. So it depends where this is the observer. Okay, until unless we define the position of the observer, it will become difficult to actually ascertain whether a body is moving or not. Okay, so these are certain very basic concepts about motion and rest. Okay, on the basis of this, we will start with our kinematics chapter. You can take a snapshot of the same. So as we kind of went through the previous slide, what is basically motion? So motion is what? How do we define motion? So the motion of any object, motion is basically a combined property. Motion is a combined property of the object and the observer. Okay, so what we mean here is that, so motion is a combined property of both the object and the observer. So what we mean here is that any object, okay, any object which we are, for which we are considering the motion, just one moment, sorry, okay, so any object for which we are considering the motion, okay, motion is a combined property of both the object and the observer. So any object for which we are considering the motion, okay, is dependent, the motion of that object will be dependent on the observer as well. So as we said that on a table there is a book and I am trying to see this book. So for a long period of time, the position of this book is not changing. Okay, so the position of this book is at rest. I am saying that with reference to time, I measured, let's say at 1 o'clock I took a measurement, at 2 o'clock I took at different times of the day. I have not moved this book, so this book is stationary. But when I am on the same frame of reference, I am on earth and so is this book. This book and me, both are on earth. Now if we are trying to see this from moon, will this be at rest? No, because the earth is revolving and the moon is rotating as well. So what I would say here is that the book is stationary, the book is at rest, or we can say that the book is at rest with respect to observer A. Observer A, right? Why? Because both the book and the observer A, both the book and the observer A are on earth, same frame, okay, are on earth. Whereas with reference to the moon, the book is moving, with respect to the moon. So if I am trying to look at the book from the moon, then it is moving, okay, and vice versa. With respect to the book, the moon is also moving. So the book is moving with respect to the moon and the moon is also moving with respect to the book, okay, with respect to the book. You are understanding this, okay, because at times our perceptions say that this body is at rest, but who is saying this? Okay, that's the main concern. Who is saying that a body is rest? Am I saying the body is at rest? It means that with reference to my frame, the body is rested. But if I go to the moon and observe the book, then it is not at rest. And similarly, the moon is it not at rest with respect to the book as well. Okay, so if you look at this, motion is basically a combination of the properties of both the object and the observer. We cannot exclude the one and include one. Okay, both have to be inclusive, both are inclusive. So the object as well as the observer, both are inclusive, they both are inclusive aspects of a motion. So when we are talking about the motion of an object, both the observer and the object are inclusive aspects. We cannot exclude any one of them. Are we clear on this one? Okay. So in the same way as I took an example in the last slide, that there is a train which is moving, and all of a sudden a robber enters or a dacoit enters, and he pulls off his gun and tells everybody to be still, to remain still, not to move. So yes, everybody is at still with respect to the observer or the dacoit, but are the people inside the train at rest with respect to the railway track? No. Are they at rest with respect to anybody standing outside the train? No. Are they at rest with respect to any tree which is outside or any object which is outside? No. Okay. So the dynamics of motion change when you change the observer. Okay. So any body which seems to be at rest, so we can say that nothing, absolutely nothing is at absolute rest or in absolute motion. We can say this, right? So in this case, or in this way, we can say that none of the objects, okay, is at either absolute rest or at absolute motion. Okay, whatever we are considering. So for example, if I look at a tree outside, I will see that the tree is at rest. Plants can't move, okay, they are immobile. But with respect to the moon, are they moving? With respect to the other planet, are they moving? With respect to the sun, are they moving? Yes, they are, because the earth itself is moving. Okay, so I might say that, so if I am on a satellite, then the moon, then the tree is moving. Okay, so these are things. So nothing is at absolute rest. None of the objects are at absolute rest or in absolute motion. Okay, so this is something that should be very clear within us. Okay, so now how do we define motion in that case? So when we have to define motion, we have to define it in terms of the frame of reference. We have to have a frame of reference. For example, me and this book are in the same frame of reference, hence I am saying that it is stationary. This frame of reference and this frame of reference are different. Okay, this will say that it is in motion. Okay, so frame of reference. So there has to be a frame of reference. For example, when I say that there is a picture, okay, there is a picture, there will be a dimension of that picture, right? There will be a length and the breadth, or maybe a slight amount of height as well. So I say that this is the frame of reference of that picture. In the same way, okay, there is a frame of reference for all the bodies in contact with each other. Okay, in the same way, we will have a frame of reference for all these bodies. Generally, what we pick up as the frame of reference is the x, y and z axis. Okay, we have an x, y, let's say this is taken as x, this is y, and the z axis. So x, y and z axis are the common frame of references that we generally take. Okay, we can have other frame of references as well, but x, y and z axis are the common frame of references that we take. In your study syllabus, there is something called as one dimension motion, or there is something called as two dimension motion. So when I say one dimension motion, what I mean here is that maybe the motion is happening only along the x axis, or the motion is happening only along the y axis, or the motion is happening only along the z axis, or any axis in between them. Okay, so there is just one dimension for that motion. When I say two dimensional motion, this can be between any of the axes x, y and z. So it can happen in an xy plane, it can happen in a yz plane, it can happen in an xz plane, and so on and so forth. Okay, then when we say three-dimensional motion, it correlates to a motion which is happening in all three dimensions. So the moving particle will move in all the aspects of x, y and z axis. That's called the frame of reference. So let's say, how do we define this frame of reference? So let's say there is a train that is moving. Okay, so let's say this is a train which is moving, and let's say I have kept my luggage here in this train. Okay, so when I actually plot it in x, y and z axis, okay, so maybe the train is moving in this direction along the x axis. So what I would say here is that with respect to me, obviously the body is at rest, but with respect to anybody who is standing outside, the luggage is moving along the x axis. Okay, there is no movement that is parallelly happening along the y or the z axis. Okay, so that's how things are. Okay, so it can happen along the x axis, it can happen if I throw a ball vertically upwards, it is moving along the y axis. Now, is it always necessary that a body has to move only along the x, y and z axis, or in any one of those axes, or on the combination? No, the frame of reference that you are choosing we are free to choose, we are free to choose the frame of reference. We are free to choose the frame of reference. There is no restriction as such for choosing the frame of reference. Okay, but generally we choose x, y and z axis for convenience, because every motion happens in a three-dimensional plane. So that's the reason we choose the x, y and z axis. Are we clear on this one? Okay, what is basically motion and what is considered as rest? So virtually none of the bodies is at rest. What seems to be at rest is at rest because it seems to be at rest with respect to you, but actually with respect to something else it might not be at rest. So none of the bodies is in absolute motion, neither can all the bodies be considered as in absolute rest. For example, if let's say there are two individuals who are traveling in the same train. So let's say this is the driver of the train who is sitting here, and they are traveling with the same velocity. So with respect to everything that is around them, the trees, the mountains, the rivers, whatever, okay, the people around, they are moving. But are they moving with respect to each other? No. Why? Because just as I said, if you look at this book, okay, at maybe 1 o'clock the book is at the same position, 2 o'clock the book is at the same position, 10 o'clock also the book is at the same position. The same thing will happen with them. They are moving in parallel tracks. So after 1 hour they can see each other, after 2 hours they can see each other, after 10 hours also they can see each other, okay, because they are moving with the same velocity. So is there motion between these two? No. Okay, so the observer and the object are not moving with respect to each other, but are they moving with respect to everything that is surrounding them? Yes, they are. So they are moving with all other things that are surrounding them, with respect to every other thing that is surrounding them, but with respect to each other there is no motion. So we have to have a very clear concept about what is rest and what is motion. Generally we kind of confuse things, okay. But when we talk about motion of a body, it is always with respect to a frame of reference. Whenever a body is moving, it is moving with respect to an observer. So motion and observer are interconnected, and they will always be inclusive aspects of motion. We cannot exclude the motion and say about the observer, we cannot exclude the observer and say about the motion. Okay, who is observing the motion? That is of a primary concern. Who is it that is recording or observing the motion? That is something that is very important. Okay, so this is how these are very basic concepts about motion. Okay, now we will talk about the various aspects of kinematics. As I said, kinematics is made up of displacement, then we have average velocity, instantaneous velocity, speed. Now we are going to understand each of these aspects. But before that, what is motion? That should be very much clear in our heads. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so now we are going to talk about the different aspects of, just one moment here, let me adjust the camera here. Alright, so we are going to talk about the different aspects of motion. Okay, so the first aspect that we have in kinematics, is related to position. Okay, so we have seen how we define the position of a body. There is actually no conclusive definition. It depends on the observer. So it's a combined property of both. So the position of rest or the position of motion is basically the combined property of both the object and the observer. Alright, now when we define the position of a body, okay, the changes that happen, we define it in two parameters. One is distance and the other one is displacement. We have studied about these things in earlier classes, wherein we say that displacement is basically the shortest distance between the initial and final positions of the body. Okay, so displacement generally in lower classes you have studied, that is the shortest distance between the initial and final positions of the body. The shortest distance between initial and final positions of the body. And how do we define distance? Distance is basically the actual path, the length of the actual path, the length of actual path covered by the body. So this is basically the length of the actual part covered by the body. Now we will understand it, as I said, we will try to understand it in terms of vectors. So this is basically a chapter in which you will have to have a proper knowledge about the vectors. Okay, So let's say now we define it in one dimensions. Okay, so so now if I say, let's say this is basically the position of a body. Okay, so with respect to, so here let's say this is displacement and distance and time. Okay, so let's say with respect to the original position, when I say that the body is at this position, as I said, the observer is very important. Okay, we cannot define motion only in terms of the body, and we cannot define motion only in terms of the observer as well. Motion is defined when observer and the object, it's basically a combined property of both the observer and object. Motion is a combined property of observer and object. In the same way here, so let's say this is basically an object and the observer is placed here at origin. So we would say that initially this is the position of the body. Let's say it is at a position A, this is at a position B. So I would say that this is the position vector. Okay, position vector. So the position vector is what? OA vector. See, OA vector. Okay, this is the initial position of the body. Now the body, let's say, has shifted here. Okay, now it could have shifted here in various ways. Okay, it could have shifted here like this, traveling like this, or traveling like this, or straight motion like this. So now understand what is the position vector of this body. The position vector of this body is basically OB. Okay, so we will say that the position vector of this body is OB. Okay, so if we were to calculate the displacement here, displacement will be this vector, let's say delta R, and this would be what? OA minus vector OB. That's how we will conclusively place displacement. Okay, so displacement will be what? Displacement will be, if we were to define displacement, displacement is the change in the position vector, the change in the position vector of the body, change in the position vector of the body. Okay, change in the position vector, displacement will basically be the change in the position vector of the body. So now how will we, now what will be direct? See, this is the position A and this is the position B. So it will be from initial to final motion. Okay, so this will be displacement. Displacement will always be, displacement will always be directed, displacement will always be directed from the initial to the final position of the body. So now we are talking about direction here. Why are we talking about direction here? Because displacement is a vector quantity. Displacement here is a vector quantity. Displacement is a vector quantity. Okay, why? Because it is having a direction. It will always be directed from the initial position to the final position of the body. So that's how we will define displacement. These were earlier concepts and these are also correct, but if you were to define displacement, I have taken a two-dimensional axis here. So generally, you know, kinematics is divided into 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension. This, it's not required. Okay, we can define it in 3 dimension at this point of time also. So let's say if we consider the z axis here, this will be the position vector of the body and this is the position vector. Even if we consider the z axis, we will define displacement in the same way. Just for convenience, I have chosen the x and the y axis out here. But even if I take z axis here and let's say this is the position of the body, so from A it has moved to B. So this will be the displacement of the body. Are we clear on this one? Okay, so displacement is basically the change in the position vector of the body. How do you define the position vector of the body? As I said, observer and object are conclusive aspects of motion. You cannot exclude any one of them, either this or this. So when I am saying that this is the position of the body which is changing with respect to whom? The observer who is located here. Okay, so the body is moving. When I say that the body is moving, it is moving with respect to whom? Generally we assume that the observer is always at the origin. Okay, so the observer is at the origin. With respect to the observer who is at rest, this body is moving from A to B. Now this body can traverse along different paths, but it has finally reached B. So there will be a position vector A, okay, at initial position vector. Now this is position vector B. So what will be the resultant? This is again vectors. We can apply triangular law of vector addition or parallelogram law of vector addition, whatever ways you want to add this, but this will be the position vector. Okay, so this will be the resultant displacement. Resultant displacement will be OA minus OB. Okay, OA minus OB, this will be the resultant displacement. Okay, so displacement is the change in the position vector of the body. Now as I said, the body, it is not necessary that in displacement the body is actually moved from A to B. There might not be a straight path from A to B. The body might have to take all this path, the body might have to take another path to reach B. So these are different distances. Okay, so displacement is a vector quantity. Displacement is a vector quantity, whereas if we consider distance, distance is basically the actual length of actual path traveled by the body. Traveled by the body. Length of the actual path traveled by the body. We know that it is a scalar quantity. It has got only magnitude, whereas this will have both magnitude as well as direction. Okay, so this will have both magnitude and direction. We can comfortably say, so let's say there is a point A and there is a point B. Now this is the initial position and let's say this is the final position of the body. So displacement will be what? If we have to talk about displacement, then this will be vector AB. Okay, again we would have a position vector, we would have a reference point. Let's say this is the reference point, this is the reference point which we have taken. So this will be the resultant point, that will be OB, vector OB, okay, minus vector OA, again directed this way. Now the distance that has been covered from A to B might be in this path, might be on this path, whatever. Okay, the distance might be anything, and the distance might be in this way as well. So what can we say between distance and displacement if we are talking just about the magnitude? Because distance and displacement can be compared only in terms of magnitude. They cannot be compared in terms of direction, because distance doesn't have direction. Distance is just the length of the actual path, okay, whereas displacement has a direction. So if I were to represent distance like this, okay, or rather like this, let's say like this, and let's say this is displacement. So this is, let's say, distance, this is displacement. So what could be the relationship between these two? What I can say here is that the magnitude of displacement, when I say magnitude, I need to place this in mod. Okay, this can be either equal or less than the distance covered. Distance will again be a scalar quantity. So the magnitude of displacement will be less than the distance covered. Are we clear on this one? Okay, because see, there might not be an actual path available, so the body has to travel all this way around to reach B, or all this way around to reach B. So this is basically the magnitude. Okay, so are we clear on this one, people? So here when we say that the body has changed its position, how has it changed its position? It has changed its position as compared to a particular point, and with reference to that point, the vector that we draw, that is known as the position vector. So this is the change in the position vector, okay, the initial and final positions. That's how we will define displacement of a body. So here the displacement will be OA minus OB, or we can say displacement will be AB. This will be the displacement. Okay, so we can apply all these laws that you have in vector addition, parallelogram law, triangular law, and all that stuff. Okay, but you need to have a proper knowledge about the vector addition part here as well. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same. All right, people, we will now understand. So we have understood what is position vector and how we correlate it to the, let me adjust the camera here. So we have understood what is position vector and how we correlate it to the aspects of distance and displacement. Now let's say if we have to talk about, let's say we'll talk about speed now. Okay, so we will move on to speed. So speed, we know, is the distance upon time thing. Okay, we all are aware of this, but now we will have to understand it in a deeper aspect. Okay, what is average speed, what is instantaneous speed? So speed, basically average speed means what? Average speed simply means distance, the total distance that is traveled upon time. Okay, so in let's say there's a certain distance that has been traveled, and the distance started at time t1 and it ended at time t2. So the distance that was traveled was between time t1 to time t2. So very simply we know that this will be t2 minus t1. Okay. So if we were to talk about the average distance that is traveled, or average speed rather, average speed will be the distance that is traveled between the two time intervals t1 and t2. Okay. So let's say if the position of the particle at time t1 was s1, and let's say it has traveled to a position s2, the distance that is traveled here, okay, let's say if we measure this path, how will we measure this? S2 minus t1. So this will be, let's say, t2. So this will be what? S2 minus s1 upon t2 minus t1, which can be generally said as delta s by delta t. Okay, delta s by delta t. So this is called average speed. Average speed, are we clear on this one? What is average speed? Okay, simple, we will just divide the total distance upon total time, the total distance that has been covered in a particular in a particular aspect of time. So this is called average speed. Okay. Now what is instantaneous speed? Instantaneous speed basically refers to speed at a particular time, speed of an object at a particular time. So what happens here is when we define instantaneous speed, instantaneous speed will be equal to, now little bit, this becomes a little complicated. How complicated? Because this will be equal to limit delta t approaching 0 delta s by delta t. Now what does this mean, delta t approaching 0? It means that within a very small amount of time frame, what was the speed? So let's say I were to, let's say in this way, okay, if I were talking about this entire amount of time, or let's say if I am talking about just this amount of time, what was the speed? Then it becomes instantaneous speed. So as t approaches, so we would say as time approaches 0, distance will also approach 0, but there will be a certain limit to this. Okay, there will be a certain fixed limit to this. There will be a certain fixed limit to this. Okay, so as time approaches 0, s will also approach 0, but there is a certain fixed limit to this. So this will be delta t approaching 0 delta s by delta t. Okay, in differentiation we write this as ds by dt. Okay, in differentiation we write this as ds by dt. So let's have a clear conception about this by taking an example here. So let's say we have been given a question here that a body has a speed given by s is equal to 0.25 t square. Okay, 0.5 t square. Now you have to calculate the speed, the average speed of the body, the average speed of the body, and you have average speed of the body from time t0 to time t5. Let's say from time t is equal to 0, time t is equal to 0 to time t is equal to 5 seconds. Time t is equal to 0 seconds to 5 seconds. Okay, and let's say you have to calculate the instantaneous speed of the body from time t is equal to, let's time t is equal to 5 seconds. So as I said, instantaneous speed is basically the speed at a particular time interval, at a particular time, a very small amount of time. What was the speed of the body? Okay, at that particular instant. As the name itself suggests, instantaneous speed means the speed at a particular instant of time. Okay, so if we were to calculate the body has a speed given by this, so what will be the average speed? So let's say average speed, so this is basically distance. A body has distance time relationship, I'm so sorry here, a body has distance s and time t relationship given by this. So you have to find out the average speed of the body, and you have to find out the instantaneous speed. So what will be the average speed? Average speed will be between the time t to time 5 seconds. Okay, so distance at 0 seconds. What will be the distance covered? Obviously 0.25 into 0 square. So this will be 0. Okay, distance covered, let me just check whether it is visible. Okay, distance covered in 5 seconds. What this will be? This will be 0.25 into 5 square. So that's going to be how much? 0.25 into 25, that's going to be 625, correct? 25 into 25, so that's going to be 6.25 meters. Okay, so what will be the average speed? The average speed here is going to be total distance covered, that is 6.25 meters minus 0 meters, that is the distance at the start, upon time t at 5 minus 0 seconds. So that will be 6.25 meters, and this is seconds, okay, upon 5 seconds. So that's going to be how much? 1.25 meter per second. That's going to be the speed. Okay, now what's going to be the instantaneous speed? How do we define the instantaneous speed? So let's say we have here, just as we have seen, so instantaneous speed, this is going to be delta S by delta T, alright, delta S by delta T, which we can also say, see, you can write this, but limit delta T approaching 0, delta S by delta T, that approximately is ds by dt, which is basically what? Differentiation. Okay, so ds by dt, this term will be equal to ds. S is how much? 0.25 t square, 0.25 t square by dt. So obviously 0.25 goes out, 0.25 goes out, we have here dt square by dt. So this will be 0.25 into 2t, correct? 0.25 into 2t, that's basically what? 0.5 t, 0.5 t. Okay, so what will be the instantaneous speed? This will be 0.5 into t. T is basically what? At 5 seconds. See, it's mentioned here at 5 seconds. So this will be what? 2.5 meter per second. That's how it's going to be. Okay, so there's a difference between instantaneous speed and the average speed. The average speed basically correlates to the total distance traveled upon total time taken. So in this problem, it was asked as to what was the average speed between 0 to 5 seconds. So what you did was, you first calculated the distance that has been traveled in 5 seconds minus the distance that was traveled in 0 seconds upon the time 5 minus 0. Okay, so that was how much it came out to be. When we are talking about instantaneous speed, we are talking about the time or the speed at that particular instant. At what instant? At time 5 seconds. So we will have to do a ds by dt. ds by dt, see, we know d to the power of x. So if we have d x to the power of n, we know that it is nx n minus 1, correct? So in the same way, d by dt of t square will give you 2t, 2 minus 1, that's going to be 2t. That's how we are getting this. That's how we are getting this 2t. So 0.25 into 2t, okay, so that's going to be 0.5 into t. The value of t here is 5, so that will be 2.5 meter per second. That's how the instantaneous speed and the average speeds are calculated. Are we clear on this one, guys? Okay, see, think about it in this way. Okay, there's a good example that has been given in the book for H.C. Verma. Let's discuss this example here. So let's say you know, when we watch cricket basically, okay, so let's say a particular team A has to score 100 runs in let's say 10 overs. Okay, so 100 runs have to be scored in 10 overs. So if you are talking about the average runs that need to be scored, that will be 10 runs per over. That will be 10 runs per over, correct? That's the average speed. Okay, but is it going to be always 10 runs per over? So in some over, the batsman might have scored 15. In some over, the batsman might have scored 20. In some over, the batsman might have scored 5 runs. Okay, so that's how the 100 is going to total up. This is instantaneous. This is as per that particular over. Okay, so this is basically, so what was scored in the first over? 15. What was scored in the second over? 20. What was scored in the third over? 5. All this is going in reducing this. Okay, so in the same way, when we talk about average speed, it's just the total distance upon total time. But when we talk about instantaneous speed, what we are referring to is at particular intervals of time, what was the speed. So if you are, let's say, traveling from your home to the office, so let's say you get a clear way here, wherein your speed has reached to as high as 60 meter per second. Okay, however, 60 kilometer per second, I'm so sorry, 60 meter per second will be huge, 60 kilometers per hour. Now you come to a marketplace wherein you cannot drive with that high speed. Okay, so then your speed reduces to almost 10 kilometers per hour. Then again it increases to, let's say, 20 kilometer per hour, and then finally it again increases to 30 kilometer per hour, and finally you reach office. So you see that there is a variation in the speed. If you calculate the total distance that you have traveled upon the total time that you have taken, you will get the average speed of your journey. But you are referring to instantaneous speed. So for this particular area or for this particular road, your average, or rather your instantaneous speed, was approximately 60. So what I am talking about here in instantaneous speed is the speed at a particular instant. What we mean here is that the speed at a particular instant, that's called instantaneous speed. Okay, so in mathematical terms, average speed will be just simple the distance, total distance covered upon total time taken. However, the instantaneous speed, this will be ds by dt. Okay, so I hope this makes a little more clearer. We have more things to discuss on average and instantaneous speeds in the next slide. Just take a snapshot of the same so that you have a clear understanding and you can correlate. Alright, so we will continue with the instantaneous speed thing. Let me adjust this microphone a little. Okay, so instantaneous speed, as we saw in the earlier example, and what is average speed? Average speed will be the total amount of distance that is covered in the total time frame, and instantaneous speed is basically the speed at a particular instant. Okay, so now we are going to consider certain examples here. Let's say if we were to represent this in a graph. Okay, so let's say we have the distance graph here and we have the time graph here. Okay, so when we are talking about, let's say a body is moving like this. Okay, so body is moving like this. Let me extend this a little more. So let's say at a time which is basically equal to t2, and this is basically t1. Okay, so if I were to calculate the average speed, let's say here we have distance s1 or rather s2, and here we have distance s1. Okay, so if I were to calculate the average distance between these 2 points, okay, so average speed, what will be the average speed? Average speed will be the total distance that is covered here, okay, upon the total time. So what will be the length of this total distance? This will be how much? This will be s2 minus s1. This will be s2 minus s1. And what will be the total time that is covered here? That will be t2 minus t1. So what will be the average speed out here? The average speed will be s2 minus s1 upon t2 minus t1. So this is basically delta s by delta t. This will be delta s by delta t. Now if we were to calculate the instantaneous speed. Now when we say instantaneous speed, we will talk about speed at a particular instant. So let's say if I were to calculate this instantaneous speed at this point, what will this be? So instantaneous speed, let's say at position A, what will this be? This will be basically correlating to a tangent that will be drawn here. So this tangent, if we look at it, this will be theta. Okay, so tangent, the value of the tangent tan theta will be equal to ds by dt, and this is called instantaneous speed. Okay, so if we represent it in a graph, this is how it's going to look at. Okay, so this will be ds by dt. We can call this as a slope of this curve as well. Slope of this curve as well. What is it representing? Why like this and why here it is like this? Because we are talking about the speed at this particular instant. What is the speed of this particle? It is going like this, right? See, if a particle is moving in a circular motion, and if I say at this particular instant, what is the speed? It is in this direction. At this moment, it is in this direction. At this moment, it is in this direction. How will you know this? If you basically tie a stone to a thread and you start rotating it, okay, at this point of time, if the stone leaves the thread, it will go in this direction, it will go in this direction, and similarly, and so on and so forth. Why? Because that's the instantaneous speed. So this is the instantaneous speed. So if we were to calculate the instantaneous speed, this is how it is going to look like. Okay. Now we have studied in the earlier classes that when we represent it in terms of graph, okay, when we represent the motion of a body in terms of graph, we can calculate the distance covered, we can calculate the average velocity and all that things. So let's say if I were to represent the motion of a body in terms of a graph, how will I calculate? So let's say this is the velocity of the body, this is a velocity time graph. So if you recall, in velocity time graph, how will you calculate the distance that is traveled by a body? By calculating the total amount of area that is under the curve. So let's say a body is traveling like this. Okay, so this is the velocity. This is the velocity time graph of a body. How will you calculate the distance that is traveled by the body? So let's say this will be actually the area of this entire part, right? See, velocity into time is what? Or rather, speed into time is what? Speed into time is what? Here you can also take about speed. Speed into time is the distance covered. Okay, so let's say this is time t1 and this is time t2. Okay, now understand this. Okay, at this instant of time, at any particular instant of time, okay, so at a particular how are we applying the concept of instantaneous velocity to calculate the entire distance traveled by the body? At a particular instant of time, at a particular instant, let's say the velocity is, let's say the velocity of the body is v. Let's say the velocity of the body is v at a particular instant of time. Okay, now let's say the body has covered a very small amount of time, in a very small amount of time. So let's say we will take this a very small amount of time. Okay, so we take this as dt, right? What will be the distance covered? Distance covered by the body, distance covered is equal to the velocity which is there of the body into dt, this small amount of time. So now you have to, if you have to cover the entire distance, distance covered by the body, distance covered by the body will be, distance covered by the body will be the total area, will be the total area of the body, total area of the body under the curve, total area of the body under the curve. Distance covered by the body will be the total area of the body under the curve. Okay, so in this way we have v dt. So if we keep on adding these areas, if we keep on adding these areas, again we add this, again we add this, okay, again we add this. So if we keep on adding these areas, finally we will get the total area. So what is this process of adding known as? This process of adding is known as integration, and that's how we will apply the concept here. Okay, so so we know that this is v dt. So if we have to, this is basically the distance covered in this small time interval dt. Understand this, the distance that has been covered by the body in this very small amount of time interval dt will be v into dt. So how will we calculate the entire distance covered? Okay, so the entire distance covered, entire distance covered by the body from interval time 1 t1 to t2, this will be equal to integration of between t1 to t2, v dt. Okay, this will be the total distance covered. Okay, so the total distance covered will be integration of, what does this mean basically? See, integration and differentiation might seem to be a little complicated for people who have not taken maths as a subject, but not something which cannot be understood. Okay, we have to understand this, that in a speed time graph or a velocity time graph, the distance is always the area under the curve. The distance that has been covered by the body will always correlate to the area which is there under the curve. So let's say if I have a speed time graph here which looks like this, so this entire area is going to give you the distance that has been covered by the body between the time limits of t1 and t2. How do we calculate this? By actually adding up all these small fragments of dt, right, and multiplying it with the velocity. So v dt will be the small distance that is covered in that small amount of time, and if we keep on adding this process is called integration. So we add v dt here and so on and so forth, we are adding this. So this will be between the limits of t1 and t2, this is v dt. So s will be v dt between t1 and t2. That's how the total distance of the body is covered. Okay, not always you have to apply this, but in terms of cases like this you will have to, because there will be an equation that will be given to you, that this is the, see, in every graph there is a correlation between y and x. We all know this, right? So y can be represented as x square, y can be actually represented as, you know, x cube plus 2x, and so on and so forth. So there is a definite correlation between v and t that would be there for this graph, and we have to correlate to that correlation in order to calculate the value out here. Let's say if we have a very simple graph wherein we just have, let's say, like this. Okay, so we have velocity or speed represented here and time represented here. It is basically a straight line graph that looks something like this. So let's say so 1 2 3 4 5, let's say this is 5 meter per second. Okay, and let's say this is 1 2 3. So you have to calculate, this is, so you have to basically calculate the distance covered in this time interval. So what you will do is you have to basically calculate the area of this part under the curve. Okay, this is a speed time graph, it's a straight line graph, not something like this. This is a straight line graph between velocity and time or speed and time. You have to basically calculate the area. So area will always be area under the curve. How will we calculate this? So let's say this is 1 2 3, so this is 3, 1 2 3 4 5, this is 5. So we know that the area of a triangle, so basically this will be correlated to the area of the triangle that is formed here. So what will this be? Half into, that is base, that is 3, into height, that is 5. So this will be somewhere around 15 by 2, that's 7.5 meters. That will be the distance that is covered, if this is in meter per second and this is in seconds. Okay, so this is how you will correlate to differentiation, integration, and all that stuff. Okay, this is this more or less explains the concept of instantaneous speed, which we are going to carry further when we understand the concept of instantaneous velocity and average velocity. So average speed is basically the total distance that has been covered upon the total time. Instantaneous speed relates or correlates to that particular instant, at that particular instant what was the speed of that particle. Okay, I hope things are clear here. You can take a snapshot of the same. Okay, so from speed now we move on to the instantaneous and average velocity concept. So what is the average velocity and the instantaneous velocity as well? Okay, all right, so we will talk about the average velocity first. So what is average velocity? Okay, so let's say we have a graph here. Okay, let's say we have a graph here, and we have this is basically the position vector of a point A. What is position vector? When we define the position of a body, the position vector is basically when we define the position of a body with respect to its origin, okay, or with respect to a reference point. So let's say this is the position vector of the body. So let's say we have R is equal to OA. Okay, we have OA here. Now this body basically moves to, let's say, a new position B in a certain amount of time. So now the position has become B. So what will be the position vector here? So let's say this is R1 and this is R2. So this should be OB. Okay, so now we are talking about displacement and velocity. So we will no longer be talking about, just one thing here. So we will no longer be talking about the path taken by the body or the distance by the body. We are just talking about the displacement here. So what will be the displacement of the body here? The displacement of the body will be from here to here. This is the displacement of the body. So let's say this will be r, or rather delta r. So this will be what? R2 minus r1, which we can say as OB vector minus OA vector. And let's say this displacement, the body has moved from here to here. The body might be taking any path to move from A to B, but what we will be considering here is this distance, this displacement, okay, because here we are talking about the velocity of the body. So R2 minus R1 will be equal to OB minus OA, correct? Okay, so now we have here, let's say this displacement has happened if the time taken is, let's say delta t. So what will be our average velocity? Our average velocity will be R2 minus R1 upon delta t, okay, whatever we want to write, the OE minus OA by delta t. This is what basically OB minus OA is the displacement upon time. So our average velocity will be displacement upon time. Simple, fair enough to understand, right? So let's say we have a problem, a good example in HC Verma, okay. So in HC Verma there is an example, let's say it's been given then that in a watch, okay, so let's say in a watch, okay, you will have to calculate the average velocity when the minute hand moves from 6 am to 6:30 am, okay. And also, so let's say this is the first question that is given, and the second part is given at when the minute hand moves from 6 am to 6:30 pm, okay. So you will have to calculate the average velocity when the minute hand is moving from the time 6 am to 6:30 am, and you will have to calculate the average velocity when the minute hand is moving from 6 am to 6:30 pm. So let's look at this. So here we have, when it is 6 am, so the r hand will be here, and let's say the minute hand will be here, okay. Now this minute hand is at 6 am, this is basically 6 am, okay. Now let's say we will take another chalk here, okay, I don't have one, okay. So let's say this now moves, so at 6:30 am this minute hand would have moved here, okay, this would have moved a little here. We are not concerned with the r hand here, we are just concerned with the minutes hand here. So this will have moved from here to here, okay. So what will be the displacement? Try and understand. So let's say here is given the length of minute hand. The length of minute hand here is 4 centimeter, okay. So imagine this was the initial position, now this has changed and come to this position. So what is the total displacement that has happened? The path might be anything, it might be circular, it might be curvilinear, whatever, but what is the total displacement here? This, let's say, is r, so this will be r. So total displacement will be how much? 2r, correct? 2r. And what is the time taken? 2r, that means what? 2 into 4 centimeter, that can be written as 2 into 4 into 10 to the power of minus 3 meter. That's basically what? 8 into 10 to the power of minus 3 meter. That's the displacement. That's the total displacement, correct? And if we were to talk about the time that has been taken here, so time, how much time will it take? Half an hour. Half an hour for the hours hand from 12 to come to 6. Half an hour, that's how much? 30 minutes, that's how much? 30 minutes means 30 into 60, that's 1800 seconds. So what will be the average velocity? The average velocity is going to be the displacement, total displacement upon time, Total displacement is how much here? Total displacement is 8 into 10 to the power of minus 3 upon 1800 seconds. Whatever you know, this is something that you have to calculate. We can actually. So this will be 10 to the power of minus 5, 8 upon 18. So this will be 2 4s are 8, 2 9s are 18, 9 4s are 36, approximately 0.44, or we can write this as 4.4 into 10 to the power of 5 meter per second. Okay, that would be the average velocity. From where to where? From 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Now, if it is 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., okay, how much time? So again the displacement is going to be the same, right? It has moved from here to here. Now imagine this, between 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. this minute hand had covered a lot of revolutions, right? Every time, so here it is 6 o'clock, at 6:30 it will be here, at 7 it will be here, at 7:30 again it will be here, at 8:30 again it will be here. We are not going to take this, we are just going to consider the initial and final positions, alright? The initial position of the minute hand at 6 a.m. is here, the final position of the minute hand at 6:30 p.m. will be here. So again the displacement is going to remain the same, okay? So if we are to consider from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. again, what will be the displacement here? Displacement will be the same, 2r. We are not concerned with the path followed, we are just concerned with the difference between the final and initial positions of the body. So the final and initial positions of the body has a difference of 2r, which means what? 2 into, again that will be the same, that is 2 into 4 into 10 to the power of minus 3, that's 8 into 10 to the power of minus 3 meters. What is the time taken here? Time taken will be how much? 12.5 hours, right? 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. that's 12, and 6:30, so that's 12.5 hours. So how much minutes, seconds will it be? 12.5 hours. If we convert this into seconds, that will be 12 into 12 6 into, that is 15 by 2 basically, 12 to 25 by 2, 25 by 2, right, into 60 into 60. So that's going to be how much? 230, 25 to 45 by 3 is 75, 75 into 6 with 30. So that will be 4,045, right, 45,000 seconds. So now the average velocity will be what? Again same distance, that is 8 into, the average velocity is going to be 8 into 10 to the power of minus 3 meters upon 45,000 seconds. Okay, you understand the difference here? Okay, so average velocity will be displacement upon time, and that's how the things are. Okay, this is how the things will look. So what is average velocity? The difference between displacement upon time. What is displacement? Displacement is the difference between the initial and final positions of the body. So average velocity will be displacement upon time. Okay, we are clear on this one? Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so now we will talk about instantaneous velocity. We have seen what is average velocity. Now we will talk about instantaneous velocity. Alright, so let's talk about instantaneous velocity. Okay, so what do we actually mean by instantaneous velocity? Instantaneous velocity is basically velocity at a particular instant of time. Okay, so this is basically velocity at a particular instant of time. Okay, so let's say a body is, let's say this is basically displacement of a body, and this is time. This is how the body is moving. Okay, so how will we calculate the instantaneous velocity? So all this will be tangent. Okay, so let's say at point O, at point O, this will be the, at point O, let's say V1 at point O, V1 is the instantaneous velocity. V1 is the instantaneous velocity. Okay. Let's say the body reaches a point B, or let's say A. So this will be the, so at point O, at point A, V2 is the instantaneous velocity. V2 is the instantaneous velocity. Okay, and so on and so forth. Let's say at point B, V3 will be the instantaneous velocity. At point C, V4 will be the instantaneous velocity. Okay, so the instantaneous velocity is what? Instantaneous velocity is basically the tangent drawn to the path of the body. Tangent drawn to the path of the body. So at that particular instant wherein you are trying to find out the instantaneous velocity, you are just drawing a tangent out there, and the slope of the tangent is going to give you the velocity of that body. So how will we define this? So let's say if we come into mathematical terms, we have seen what is average velocity, or rather velocity of a body is equal to delta S, that is distance covered in time. Okay, that is the average velocity that we have studied. Instantaneous velocity will be equal to limit delta t approaching 0, delta S by delta t. Limit delta t approaching 0, delta S by delta t, which means that almost a vanishing time interval. We are taking a almost zero time interval. Okay, vanishing time interval. This is the vanishing time interval that we have taken, and this can be written as ds by dt. Okay, so this will be the instantaneous velocity. Okay, let's say if we are defining velocity, let's say the velocity, or rather the displacement of a body, is correlated to time. Okay, and it has been given that S is equal to t cube minus 4t square. You have to find out the let's say okay, so let's say we have 3 t cube minus 4t. You have to find out the average speed between time t is equal to 0 and time t is equal to 3 seconds, and average velocity and instantaneous velocity between t is equal to instantaneous velocity will not be between, so instantaneous velocity at time t is equal to 3 seconds. So how will you do this? See, distance travel, displacement. So this is basically the displacement that has been given to you. This is the displacement that has been given to you, and it is correlated to time by this equation. Okay, so what will be the distance traveled in 0? Obviously 0. Okay, what will be the distance traveled in time 3 seconds? So this will be 3 cube minus 4 into 3. So that's going to be how much? 27 minus 12, 15. That will be the distance. Okay, so what will be the average velocity? That will be distance traveled upon time taken. That is how much? 3 seconds. So that will be 5 meter per second. Now if you were to calculate the instantaneous velocity here will be what? ds by dt. So let's do this. This will be d by dt of t cube minus 4t. So we will be doing d by dt of t cube minus d by dt of 4t. Okay, so that will be how much? 3t square minus 4. Now we just need to substitute the value of 3, right? 3 seconds. Instantaneous velocity at time t is equal to 3 seconds. So this will be 3 into 3 square minus 4. That's going to be how much? 9 3s are 27. 27 minus 4. That's going to be 21 meter per second. So that's how we will calculate instantaneous velocity. Okay. So this is basically how instantaneous velocity is calculated. Very simple. It will be ds by dt. For an infinitesimal or very small amount of time, what is the displacement that has happened, that will be correlating to the instantaneous velocity. Okay, I hope we are clear on this one. You can take a snapshot of the same. Okay, so now we are going to talk about more about instantaneous velocity. Okay, so whenever a particle is basically moving, okay, the instantaneous velocity will be actually the velocity that is applicable when we draw a tangent to that motion. Okay, so let's say we have thrown a ball and the ball is thrown from this point to this point. So across this trajectory there might be different velocities. So let's say v1 is the instantaneous velocity at point A. v2 will be the instantaneous velocity at point B. Okay, similarly we will have v3 as the instantaneous velocity at point C, and so on and so forth. v4 will be the instantaneous velocity at point D. These are all tangents. Okay, so tangents at different points of the trajectory So tangents at different points of the trajectory path give the instantaneous velocity. So tangents at all these trajectories, tangents at the entire trajectory will give the instantaneous velocity at these points. Okay, so that is one thing. The other thing is that the magnitude of instantaneous velocity. So these are certain things that you need to actually have a clear concept on. Okay, so the magnitude of instantaneous velocity, and instantaneous speed, which we have already learned. Okay, the magnitude of instantaneous velocity and instantaneous speed, the magnitude of instantaneous velocity and instantaneous speed is going to be equal, is always equal. Okay, so if we just consider the magnitude of instantaneous velocity, okay, this will be equal to the magnitude of the, obviously instantaneous speed will just have the magnitude only. Okay, it will not have a direction, so their magnitudes will always be equal. Is there a scope of a difference between instantaneous and instantaneous speed and instantaneous velocity? Yes. So let's say if a body, let's say if I consider a body is moving in a circular motion, if a body is moving in a circular motion with constant speed, if a body is moving in a circular motion with constant speed, then what will happen? Okay, with constant speed, then the instantaneous speed will, the magnitude of the instantaneous speed will always be equal to the magnitude of the instantaneous velocity. However, the directions will be different. So when a body is moving here, so let's say this is a circular motion, so the instantaneous velocity at this point is, let's say v1, at this point is v2, at this point is v3, at this point it's v4. Now if we consider the instantaneous speed, this will all be equal. So instantaneous speed, let's say it is s, the magnitude of the instantaneous speed will be equal to the magnitude of all these instantaneous velocities, v1, v2, v3 and so on and so forth, v4 and so on and so forth. Okay, so in case of a circular motion, a body which is moving with a constant speed in a circular motion, it will have the instantaneous speed equal to the magnitude of the instantaneous velocities at all these points. Okay, so these are certain things that we have. It's not always necessary that the average speed and the instantaneous speed be equal. Okay, so let's say if we have a body here and the body is moving like this. So let's say if I am plotting it in the x and the y axis, the body is moving something like this. It comes here, it moves here like this, and so on and so forth. So there is a possibility, if I consider this entire thing, let's say this comes out to be the average velocity, let's say. Okay, now if I take the instantaneous velocity at this point, VA, I see that it might be equal to the average velocity. Let's say this is the average velocity. This is a body which is moving like this, okay? It is moving like this. So if I take the instantaneous velocity VA, this might be equal to the average velocity. Let's say the speed is not changing, it's just the direction which is changing. Okay, now when I come to point BB, look at this, okay? At this instant, what is the velocity here? VB, okay? Now VB is basically perpendicular to the average velocity. VA is parallel to the average velocity, okay, and VB is perpendicular to the average velocity. So it all depends. The instantaneous velocity is, this is how the instantaneous velocity happens, okay. So if the particle is moving, let's say if any particle is moving with a constant speed, any particle is moving with a constant speed. If it is moving with a constant speed, then the instantaneous velocity will always be equal to the instantaneous speed. Okay. So these are certain characteristics of instantaneous speed and velocity as well. You can take a snapshot of the same.